rugged shores and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around, my friend, at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of their beauty in the state of Michigan.
Hi there, come on in. It is Thursday night. It's the eve of the day before Michigan's firearm deer opener, and we're starting the show with a home video that shows the behavior of a white-tailed buck that I think you'll find pretty interesting. I'll close the show with a guide's report from around the state. I'm Zachary Trost.
And I'm Fred Trost with a few last-minute legal tips for hunters. This show is about white-tailed deer as we head into Saturday's opening day, a show for practical sportsmen on this, the 13th of November, 2003. Here's a fast 2.5 minutes of legal advice for opening weekend. If you're hunting on public land, remember, there are no territories. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy, which is an important phrase in law when you're on public land. There's no such thing as a trespasser on public land, but it is possible to encounter hunter harassment on public land, and this might come from another hunter who's trying to spoil your time so he can get your spot. Should you call the DNR? Frankly, trying to get a criminal prosecution for hunter harassment is an uphill battle. I'd suggest finding out who the person is, making sure you can identify him. Having a witness or a videotape is really helpful, and if you can't get their name, track them to their vehicle, get their license number. Then you can bring a civil lawsuit for hunter harassment against them, and you don't need the cooperation of a prosecutor and a conservation officer. Now, on the subject of conservation officers, hunters have felt that COs have harassed them at times. On public land, it's not going to be considered harassment. They can check you, your gun, your equipment, and being in a public area, you'd best cooperate. Now, I have a constitutional problem with their intrusive searches, even on public land, but my advice is, on opening weekend, you would be better off not to start this battle on constitutional principles. Not that you can't win in the long run in court, but that's not the object of deer hunting in the woods. Now, if they want to go back to your cabin, if they want to look in your truck or search the trunk of your car, if they're not arresting you, say no. You can consent to a complete search if you want, but you also have a constitutional right to say no. And as an attorney, my advice is just say no. You're just making needless trouble for yourself, and you'll find it very upsetting. Now, what about if you're hunting on private land, it's posted, a CO shows up unexpectedly to check your license? Do the same thing you would do with any other trespasser. Tell them it's private property, invite them to leave immediately, they don't have permission to be here, and if they don't have a search warrant and they're not ready to write you a ticket right now, tell them to get off the property immediately. You do have an expectation of privacy on private land. Anybody waltzing in is interfering with that privacy, and you do have a right to kick them off. Now, I'm sure that after opening day, I'm going to receive a lot more questions of law. Here's something unusual, a 9-point buck eating apples from the proverbial 2-gallon recreational feeding pile in a suburban Detroit backyard. Todd Humecki was on the camera relating information to his wife Helen, who was on the phone relating information to a neighbor, Dan Garapi.
What a monster. He's about the same size as the one I've got on the wall, a little bit bigger, I think.
Did this buck show up to eat apples? No, not really, but it can't resist chomping on a few. What it's really looking for is a doe, a hot doe, one that's in heat. It's not concentrating on the food, it's watching, listening, cocking its ears, scanning the surroundings for any sign of a doe that might be coming in to feed. It interrupts its chewing so it can hear better, in case a doe is walking in or grunting. Checking things out mainly with its eyes, which are good in all directions, partly with its ears that are also multi-directional, and somewhat with its nose. It licks its nose to help it pick up a scent. Watch. It doesn't lick its nose to clean food off. It's moistening its nose to make it more sensitive to odors drifting in the wind.
You see that on his left side?
Yeah.
That one little fork?
He didn't have any two in the middle, did he?
Yeah. He had the brow tines. Well, he's got 5 on one side and 4.
5 on one side and 4 on the other.
That's Helen repeating what Todd is telling her from behind the camera, giving the neighbor a blow-by-blow description of what the buck is doing. This is October 29th, the time when does start coming into heat in Michigan. And this buck, of course, is by itself, typical of the breeding bucks at this time of year. They're usually 3 to 5 years old with big bodies, thick necks, very territorial and competitive in their quest for does. It can't hear much from inside the house, but it appears to hear Todd whistle. Didn't scare the buck. Well, if he heard it, he probably thought it was a bird. The reason a bird calling would catch his attention is that a doe coming through the woods might alarm a bird, and the buck reacts because that might signal to him that a doe is coming in. Did he hear something over there? His ears are cupped, but apparently another false alarm. This buck is on edge, not out of a fear of predators, but because he's excited about finding a doe in heat. Biologically, that's what he's all about at the end of October. Licks the nose to keep it sharp, but remember, his nose is only useful to him when the smell he wants is upwind. His eyes and ears work in all directions. When he turns to look behind him, which appears to be downwind, he doesn't bother to lick his nose so much because the wind is carrying the scent away compared to the other direction, where the wind is bringing those odors to his nose. He's not having much luck spotting a doe from this feed pile, but he has another trick up his sleeve. Maybe he needs to leave a message so a doe could get back to him. Well, they don't have cell phones, but what do bucks do to leave messages for does? Right here's the prime spot. It's called a licking branch. He's not eating it, he's mouthing it, leaving a scent. A doe can see that this branch has been marked.
He's chewing on a tree.
He's not really chewing it, he's just marking it.
Yeah.
I think he's rubbing his scent on the branches.
That's exactly what he's doing.
He might start a rub or a scrape right there in our yard.
The licking branch is step 1 in marking.
No, he might.
Step 2 is pawing the ground under the licking branch.
Yeah, there he is. He's scraping.
Licking, pawing, and now for step number 3.
And he's pissing.
That's the sequence, but he can't do step number 3 in this quantity very often. He empties his bladder on the first scrape, and this will exhaust his supply for quite a while. Then he walks away sort of stiff-legged. That's how the dominant breeding bucks walk during the rut. Where would he be going? Why, look at this. Another good spot for a licking branch. Now, it's called a licking branch because that's what they do first.
Now he's rubbing
Now, wait a minute, he's rubbing what?
his scent glands on the branches of the apple tree.
He's putting his scent glands on the other.
And he's making another scrape.
He's taking another scrape. He's scraping.
That's only steps 1 and 2.
He's scraping.
Now he's pissing again.
Oh, he's pissing again.
All this pertinent information transmitted live via telephone, just like Ashley Banfield in the desert.
He's out there. He scraped a couple of times. Did his thing. Oh, now he's taking it down. Is he taking it down, Tom, or pissing?
Yes, that's what he's doing, but only because the spirit moves him. It has no special communication value. He feels better now, so he starts another licking branch, marks it with the glands on his forehead, then step 2.
Yeah, he's making a buck scrape.
He's making a buck scrape.
Need I remind you what comes next?
Now he's pissing again.
He's pissing again. He's pissing for the third time.
The daily limit is 2 or 3 quarts, not a lot.
Remember, everything you say is being recorded, so don't get. You might have to show this to mixed company.
I don't think Todd knew at the time that Dan Garapi was going to be sending this tape to us, but really, it doesn't sound anything like the Osbournes. Todd and Helen just called it like they saw it. And here goes that buck working on a licking branch again.
You see how it is, hon, when you count the tines on one side that you can see?
Nobody said counting 4 tines on one side was easy, unless the buck is standing in your yard, of course. Get those antlers moving against a background of twigs, whew, they're hard to count. Now watch. Something scared it just for a moment, and you think these deer are smart? Well, this buck goes on to steps 2 and 3, never mind he's 30 feet away from the branch.
Now he's peeing again.
I guess the Humekis are thinking about that mixed company.
We were talking to Drew yesterday, and we told him we had to call you in order to be able to see the big buck.
Tommy's made like 3 scrapes right out near our volleyball court.
He made three scrapings. Have you heard that?
This has got to be exciting for the listener.
He's leaving his scent everywhere.
And he's rubbing his tarsal glands on the trees.
Not the tarsals, Todd. Tarsal glands are on the deer's hocks. The preorbital glands are around the eyes and head. That's what they rub on the branch. Bow hunters have had this old wives' tale that deer can see an arrow coming and they duck. Not true. They might hear the bowstring twang, but whenever a deer bolts from a standing position, it has to drop down so it can spring away. That gives the illusion that it ducked the arrow, but in reality, the deer never saw it. You saw it right there. The deer ducked with no provocation.
I wonder where the females are.
They might not be ready to breed yet.
Actually, a doe comes into heat for only 24 to 36 hours, and bucks spend a lot of time with their noses to the ground trying to pick up the scent of a doe to check if they're in heat. This tape was taken in Farmington Hills, by the way, in a suburban Detroit backyard.
It's something to be able to see that.
Joe Hoofman from Muskegon, oh man, he was bow hunting the day before gun season. 14th of November up in Antrim County on public land, and I suppose there's all kinds of guys out there walking around, scouting, setting up their area.
I didn't see anyone all rifle season, so.
You kidding me?
Yeah, I was all by myself.
On public land?
Right.
But, so you hunted rifle season too?
Yeah, I got a spike opening day.
But look at this one. Boy, that's a dark rack. Now that must mean there's some swamps and pines and stuff up there.
Yeah, but I was hunting hardwood. So I pretty much owe the deer to my dad. We had already taken all our stands down the day before, and for some odd reason he woke me up the next morning and said we had time to throw a tree stand up and go out for a couple hours. And it wasn't in the backyard. We went out and we went out and set up a stand at like 8 o'clock, and I hadn't been sitting there very long, and I shot it before he had even gotten his stand.
Man, that is a great buck. Are you going to get this mounted or?
Full mount.
Ooh. How big was the buck?
220, full live weight. It's the biggest one we've taken at our camp in like 40 years.
So what is the pose going to be in this full mount? Anything?
Just standing, head up.
And where are you going to put it?
In my basement.
Well, that's going to be cool. Way to go, Joe Hoofman. That's a great story. That's going to be a cool mount. Now, here's a muskie that came out of a lake in Gladwin County, a 37-pounder, but it was 55 inches long. I mean, this is tremendously long for a muskie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's quite large. Yeah, it was January the 12th a year ago. About 2 o'clock, I left the house, and I was back to the house at 3:30 with this muskie. I told her I went in the house, and I told my wife, I said I got a fish out there bigger than our daughter. She just started laughing, and I said, no.
This is your daughter?
This is my daughter, yeah. And it's bigger than my daughter, I'll tell you that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
You were out by yourself?
Oh yeah, only person on the lake that day. Not another soul out there. One guy was walking on the bank, and I was only there 5 minutes, and that first flag went up, and I caught a 25-inch northern, and I laid him on the ice. I was going to go and get my pliers, and looked over, and the other one was up, and walked over there, and I had about an 18-inch hole, 18 inches long and 12 inches wide. The guy walked over, and he says, "Can I watch you pull it up?" And I said, "I don't care, go ahead." And I had him up to the hole the first time, and he turned and he rolled, and he just boiled water out and got me all wet with water. He said, "Man, what was that?" And I said, "I don't know what it was." You know. And then the second time I got him back up again after about 10 minutes or so, and I seen his tail that time, and got me wet again. He took off again. He took all the line out I had out again, and he made 2 revolutions all the way around the hole. And finally, I pulled him back again, and then he took off one more time, one more revolution around the hole. Finally, that time I started pulling him in, and I said, I think I'm just pulling a bunch of weeds now. I got into the weeds. I just pulled 37 pounds of dead fish.
Wow.
Because he was tired out.
I guess. Well, that is something else.
I had to gaff him, though, to get him.
Well, lucky you had that with you.
Yeah.
Dennis Crowell from Beaverton. Congratulations on that. That's an awesome fish. Bigger than you, Pumpkin. So who's Mullins?
That's me, sir.
That's your demand.
Yeah.
Let's see this buck here. What do you got?
He's a good 8. I don't know if you said would it be got to be an inch to call him to give it an extra point.
I don't know. In some circles.
He's a good 8.
So now,
Just out
what
about
brought you
160
here?
pounds. I come to have Tim mount it for me because he did a friend of mine's deer probably about 15 years ago. It was a nice 8-point taken out of Wayne County, and it looks the same today as it did 15 years ago. So Tim does very good quality work, so that's why I brought it.
Does that surprise you? It looks as good as it did 15 years ago?
Yeah, because you see some of the deer that after a time, and it's just they lose their their hair, and it doesn't look the same anymore. Some of the deer I've seen, but his, I tell you what, it's just unbelievable the difference.
So you'd like yours to look good?
Oh, no doubt about it.
For the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, to me, I feel this is my trophy of my lifetime, so I want to get a nice job done on them, and so that way I can keep them for many years to come.
Oh, that's awesome. There's not a lot of people value that. They just want to know what the price is.
Right. But to me, when you shoot something like that, price is really not an issue. If you want to keep them to be nice for the rest of your life, because it ain't every day you get an opportunity to shoot something like that. So.
Well, very good.
Yeah. Pretty excited.
Well, I certainly hope he doesn't screw this one up.
1 in 5.
The museum will be closed this weekend because Tim Hayes will be looking for a big buck in Jackson County. Tim Farragut and I will have our base camp at Warblers Cove and hunt public land in Ogemaw County, and Zachary is going across the bridge to Menominee County. That's our pre-deer season show. I want you to have fun, be safe. We're going to see you back here next week. But before we finish, I can't let you head out to deer camp without passing on what I think is probably far and away the best, most effective product for deer hunters that I've ever heard about. Al Torrey from Fenton sent me this tip, and it is an absolute winner. He says, if you want to know if there are any deer in your area, just try using a penny. I'm not kidding, I'm serious. In the evening, put the penny out by a tree or a bush or especially along a trail. And the next day, sneak out to that spot. If the penny is gone, you know that the deer got your scent. Good luck.